Food service employers of Reddit, what's the most unprofessional thing a worker has done to get immediately terminated? Story number one. Apparently, a really sketchy dishwasher went out to smoke and came back in with a laptop he wanted to sell. He said his friend met him with it out back on his smoke break and he told the guy he'd ask around. The bartender bought it immediately because it was such a great deal. About an hour later, a guest who'd just finished eating came back in and told them her car had been broken into and her laptop was missing. She asked if we could check the security tapes of the parking lot. Yes, this idiot dishwasher went outside to smoke, broke into a car in the parking lot, sold the laptop to the bartender, and went about washing dishes all while this lady was inside eating dinner. Story number two. A girl posted a Snapchat story of her taking money from the cash drawer behind a manager's back. Like, she filmed the back of a manager who was talking to another employee, then filmed herself lifting the bill and filmed herself walking away with it. Story number three. I work at a particular sandwich shop, and my boss hired this one lady as a closer, despite a few red flags during the interview. Her favorite thing to do after she finished her training was to tell customers we were out of bread so that she wouldn't have to help them. She just said that nobody had baked any that day. The best part is that customers who witnessed this said she didn't bother to move the bread cabinet behind the line so they could visibly see the bread right behind her. Story number four. At a restaurant I was working at, one of the managers was a lesbian, and there were repeated incidents of vandalism to the outside door with anti-gay slurs and hate speech. The general manager moved a security camera to see if they could catch whoever was doing it. It turned out to be that same lesbian manager writing fake hate speech to get attention. It was especially messed up because the owners of the restaurant had taken care of her. Like, they paid $15,000 cash for a medical procedure she had needed just because they were really nice people. Story number six. I'm the director of brewing operations. I hired a dude who claimed to have 3 years of professional brewing experience on his resume. About 2 months in, I was training him to run our brew house. As part of the process, boiling water is cycled through the system to sterilize/clean it. This guy almost opened two different valves doing this, both aimed directly at his crotch. This would have resulted in him getting literally 300 plus gallons of boiling water poured onto his family jewels. I tried to have a talk with him later that day about why he did that/how to make sure he didn't do it again. This dude slammed his fist on the table, yelled, "That's a lie! You told me wrong!" at the start of the conversation. He was fired the next day. Story number seven. This guy grabbed a coworker's butt and it was caught on camera. He had been harassing her for a while, but he was sneaky and made sure not to do it in front of people who would do something. So it was difficult to get hard proof, but I knew it was happening. The boss was also conflicted because he was friends with the guy's dad. But as soon as I had the video evidence, he was instantly gone, and I never felt so satisfied with a termination in my life. Story number eight. I worked at a grocery store. It was unionized. Union dues suck, but it's not like they don't do stuff for you. There were regular pay raises and a decent layer between you and management. The neatest thing with unions is that it's pretty hard to get fired. You had to be stellar at uselessness to get canned. So one week, we hired this new kid. He was very young, self-entitled, and he bragged a lot about nothing. He rarely arrived on time. He took overly long breaks, always asked to leave early, and complained about lack of money and union fees. He got fired. I was there for a year, and I have never seen anyone actually get fired, but he found a way. As it turns out, he would ask for tips. He would argue with the elderly over the quarters that were inserted into the carts. He wanted those quarters and they were his, dang it. He also somehow bagged groceries badly. Turns out that heavy cans of soups and whatnot didn't do good things on top of bread, eggs, and various other crushables. I don't believe he made it a full 3 weeks, part-time, before he was let go. To this day, he is a testament to idiots everywhere. The last straw was when he put eggs in the cart first, then dropped a bag of heavy cans over it. The customer got home, saw what happened, and came back furious. She had dented cans and a bag full of yolk. Surprise. He also argued with her over her quarter used to get the cart. He may have also insulted management / the job when confronted. Story number 9. We had a line cook who was an ex-gang member, had lots of gang tattoos, spent weekends in the police tank. You know, your normal crappy line cook stuff. One day he sauntered into work with a backpack, reeking of pot and jack, not in uniform, and under the influence of probably like 4 different illegal substances. This was also the first time he came in with a backpack, I should note. He worked the line for 10 minutes, messing up like 4 orders, then went and took a 10-minute break. I went out and found him sitting out back in full daylight and in full view of the parking lot, smoking a crack pipe. I walked over to him to tell him off and tell him to pack his crap up and leave for the day. Then I noticed the 2 15-year-olds sitting next to him, waiting their turn. He freaked out, begged me not to call the cops and to let him finish his shift. First, he broke the rules and I had to let him go. Second off, dealing out of the restaurant to minors is obviously immoral and illegal as heck. Third, this has been his last warning, as he had come in a few times completely off his rocker. He started crying, begging me not to fire him. I told him I would bring his bag out to him, and then he had to go. I went inside, then came back out to give him his bag, only to find him getting arrested. Someone saw everything in the parking lot and called the cops. He looked at me with puppy eyes and shook his head as hard as he could, basically begging me without words not to give the cops the bag. I just handed the bag to the cops, said it was his, then turned to him and said, "You reap what you sow. Hope everything works out eventually." This was about 2 years ago. I've heard he got out recently and has turned his life around. Story number 10. I work in catering, and one of our typical tasks is butler passing, carrying around drinks or hors d'oeuvres on trays and offering them to guests. This one new hire, let's call her Tulip, was assigned to butler pass Cosmopolitans, which is fancier and far more expensive than your usual standard pass. A tray probably holds about 8 of these, but at least 6. After a couple of trays, Tulip was noticeably sloshed. In case this isn't clear, she was slamming the Cosmos. She was stumbling around, unable to balance a tray, so somebody pulled her off passing, and Tulip walked off in a huff. The manager, let's call her Tracy, got wind of what was happening, and when she came back to take control of the situation, Tulip was nowhere to be found. That is, until she was spotted smoking with the guests on the balcony, which is a no-no in formal banquets. Tracy went out and told her to put it out and come inside, to which Tulip replied, "F you, Tracy, F you!" Tulip finished her smoke, came inside, and passed out on a sack of dirty linens. Tracy asked the chef who needed to drive back to our headquarters if he could bring Tulip there and find a way to get her home safely. They roused Tulip and Tracy fired her. The chef was driving one of our semi-trucks back to HQ with Tulip in the passenger seat. She was flirting really heavily with him. She then pulled off her pants and underwear and began trying to seduce him right then and there. The chef ignored this the best he could and got her a cab home from HQ. The next day, Tulip showed up for her shift, having blacked out during yesterday's termination, and Tracy had to fire her all over again. Share your own story in the comments.